Sangma gajela Conrad ke Sangma ula syed jit biang kum national president kat bau Thomas Sangma ubri mele juga notura ula syed jit kum national general secretary juga seng partai National People's Party nagamantak samoy trekam jung snem arjar arfuar hadu snem arjar arfsan yakani la penapa ba do nang aikten ke NPP bedairu ke por returning officer u abe kasha hak bau la ong bagi tiga arngut kila chopsuk nomor amdan ki be khon persya hak election penthamai no kitkam kani ke seng partai.
There were 3 positions for which elections are held as per our constitution, that is called together as organizational elections. For the position of the National Treasurer, for the position of the National General Secretary organization, and for the position of National President. We did not receive any nomination for the position of National Treasurer. We received valid nomination for the position of National General Secretary Organization and the National President. There were only one name for each of the positions respectively for which we received valid nominations. By 16th of January, the candidates had the option to withdraw their candidature. They did not do so, and so today we were faced with one candidate on each of the 2 positions, that is of the President and the National General Secretary. And it was my pleasant duty to declare them elected unopposed. The position of the Treasurer was declared as being vacant per force, and the situation now is that for the year 22 to year 25, Mr. Conrad Sangma continues to be the President, and Mr. Thomas Sangma continues to be National General Secretary Organization. I think that sums up what was done today. There was no contest because there was only one candidate, and when such a situation arises in a democratic process, votes are not cast because it's a exercise in futility. If there is only one candidate, even if one vote is cast, that person wins. And you can't cast a vote against the person as there is no other candidate. So normally in such a situation, whether it's the election of the President, Member of Parliament, Legislature, or even a panchayat or a school monitor, the returning officer or the authorized person to declare or cast start the process of casting a ballot generally points out that this is no longer necessary and there is only one candidate, and such candidate is declared elected unopposed. Yes, what you are saying in general is very correct and very true, but as you know, one size doesn't fit all, and one size doesn't fit even the same person at every point in time in the life cycle of that institution or person. We are a relatively young party. We are a very enthusiastic party, and there is a particular set of individuals led by a particular person who have brought us here in record time, and there is a lot of enthusiastic support for these people. It is, as you must be knowing as journalists, that as parties mature, as parties, organizations become older, there are differences of opinion which need to find expression through the process of ballot, election, and different mechanisms which have a democratic stamp of approval. In our case, we are a very young party being led very effectively by a young leader. We have conducted a very transparent election, and that is not something every and many parties can say. We have followed procedure as laid down in the constitution, literally to the T. We have crossed the T's and dotted the I's. And I assure you that despite the very superficial appearance of not being contested, this is an affirmation in the leadership, the youthful leadership of a youthful party which is trying to find its place in the firmament and growing.
Halor ki jingli bla bo di gilat pathai kubor ba kumno kan NPP ka chet yu Thomas Sangma kum National General Secretary nomor de brio bla shakno dang ti kambat bor nakliang chung abi ka shab ba Dr. WR Kharluki State President ka NPP but MP ka Raja Sabha kila sei lag chung ginia ban chuba.
There is a rape charge against Thomas Sangma whom you have elected. So what is the criteria of electing? allegation rates, then you can elect them.
I happen to be a lawyer in the Supreme Court and I earn my living by practicing law. And one of the things that I was taught and try to pass on to anybody who comes to my chambers for even training is that a person is not guilty unless the courts find him so. Because if we were to go by charges without going to the merit of the charges or red flag that you are raising, would humbly submit that every citizen of the country has a right, a constitutional right to stand up for election for a post for which he may be qualified. And Mr. Sangma was amply qualified for the position. So I would not like to comment on something which may be sub judice or which may not be relevant to our election directly. Morality is something which is very flexible in the sense that it's directly related to the ethical question of what is right and wrong. I think that is what you are trying to point out. I remember that when heads were being chopped off after the French Revolution at the orders of Robespierre, a particular lady got up and said in front of the Statue of Liberty that, "Oh Liberty, what wrongs are not committed in your name?" This is at the peak of the movement which has given us modern democracy. All that I am trying to say is, let's not read too much into anything. The factum of election of a person who was well qualified to be elected is not a reflection on the interpretation and law or applicable provisions on any one of us. But that's not the mandate of this forum. At the same time, the moral and ethical issue is for each of us to face individually and sometimes severally. And I doubt if many of us can answer that in a very satisfactory manner. The party has a lot to do with ethics and morality, but how those ethics and morality are interpreted is also within certain bounds. And one of those bounds are the rights of that individual also. You see, I may not like somebody, or I may not like somebody's freedom, but I have an obligation to defend that person's freedom despite my personal opinions. And that right and obligation to defend the second person's freedom is the matter, is the bottom line which determines the quality of our democracy.
I remember as a president when that case of Niedermann Chulet came. I'm very clear with this. Like what you said, until proven guilty, a person is not guilty. If you read the book of God waits but sees the truth, in which one person was convicted in Russia at that time. This person ultimately, after spending of more than 40 years, he was found he was not the murderer. So who are we to judge? No. So my position as a president of the party, even that time, I'm very clear, until proven guilty. And it's not only in Russia, even in the US. A person spent 45 years in jail, then he was found to be not guilty. So like what you said, the court is there. If the court, and I make my point even last time also, in the case of Niedermann, the day he is proved guilty by the court, he will be out of my party.